get started. Om. 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 Sahana Bhavatu. Sahanau Bhunaktu. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I need to get my mouse on the screen. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritavarshini Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayini Ambatvamanusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetam Rutaduhe Namaha Yam Brahma Varunendra Rutra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapadakramopanisadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tatkatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam na vidhusura suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. So welcome to again another session of 7th chapter. So we are slowly going towards understanding also the other desires of all of us, that is more the worldly desires, and how Krishna is so compassionate that, you know, even for all of us who have worldly desires, he gives us an outlet on how this can be achieved. So that is a portion that we're going to be covering today. But let's move on to our reflection time. So today, I just want to first put a very simple and a broad question. And I want to see how you want to answer this in the realm of how we have been talking about 7th chapter. So who would you say are the two kinds of people that comes to your mind when it comes to, I guess, the 7th chapter? Just very simple, you know. I just want to see what answers you have. Yeah, Suvarna.
Hari Om. Two kinds of people. Who are they? This is me at my BMI point of view. From my BMI point of view, there is me who is only thinking about, from BMI point of view, everything is, it's from the body point of view. It is not, I'm not using the intellect as much as I'm as much as I need to. And then there are those what we call saints, our gurus, our swamis, who
Okay.
have transcended this BMI, and they have made this difficult knowledge available to us by they themselves living, and every one of them is, we have stories where be it Vivekananda or
Yes, sorry to interrupt, but basically what you're saying, the two kinds of people are, one kind of people is who are body oriented, and the other people who have transcended the body, right? And who are there to teach us, right?
Are
Very
you
good.
asking about Artha and Artharthi?
Artharthi, no, then I would have been, if that was the case, I would have asked you about the four kinds of people.
Jignashu and
Yeah, I'm kind of building up the case for something here.
okay.
But before we do that, I just wanted to understand, even if you have to simplify the world, and I think Suvarna put it beautifully. She said, basically, there are the kind of people who are body oriented and the people who have gone beyond the body. Any other kind of ways that you can kind of dissect, I guess, the world? What do you think? So basically, the reason why I'm talking about this is I am making a case for bhakti, This is a topic that I've been thinking for a while that I want to just elaborate a little bit, because it's a topic that is not very well understood. I won't say it is misunderstood, but it is not very well understood. We do have some idea, but then the idea can be understood even better. Yeah, go ahead.
And we said devotees and non-devotees.
Yes, that is absolutely within this realm. That's exactly where I'm going with a devotee and a non-devotee. Yes, somebody who is who believe. I mean, it brings in a lot of these aspects of how we talk. I mean, I will of course maybe quote later, I guess. Wayne Dyer. I don't know how many of you have heard about Wayne Dyer. I mean, the new age people may not have heard of him, but for our generation, he was this kind of the motivational speaker here in the United States, a spiritual leader too, in some sense. But that's where this aspect, when you said a devotee or a non-devotee, very good. And it does tie with bhakti. Any other thought? Okay, so it does bring to this aspect of when Gita said, devotee and non-devotee, it also brings what Suvarna said, which is somebody who's body oriented, somebody who is spiritual, So, when we look at this whole world, basically the whole world is nothing but this manifestation of the Lord. That is what 7th chapter has been saying, right? It's saying about how this Lord, consisting of this consciousness, not consisting of the Lord who is consciousness, and that same consciousness manifesting as Maya or Prakriti, and the fact that we are so much in this Prakriti, right? Where I don't know why I'm not able to move my mouse very well today. I have to see. Okay. So we have that. So the word devotee and a non-devotee can be somebody who's a non-devotee could be considered as an atheist. Somebody who's a devotee considered to be a spiritual person. And then to Suvarna's example, somebody who's body oriented can be an atheist, in the sense because the person is so filling up his time in the world or her time in the world with only looking at, what kind of the best shampoo I can get, what kind of the best movie I can see, what kind of the best, roti kapda or makan, like we say, what kind of the best restaurant I can go to, what is the best kind of. So all this falls under the atheist kind of a thing, whereas the spiritual is where we are looking at somebody who is going beyond what is in the world of matter, what is in the world of seeing, right? So Just don't know where my mouse went. Okay, here is my mouse. Okay. So this brings to the two kind of people are people who are either attached to the world or is attached to God. Okay. So just very, very simple explanation. And exactly what you all said fits in this mode too. Somebody is very body oriented, is very much attached to the world. Nothing actually wrong with that. When I say nothing wrong in the world, because in 7th chapter, you will see how Krishna says that even that is okay. And how people who are very attached to the world, I can actually help them also until they get tired of what they are looking for and they come to me. So this attachment to the world and this attachment to him is where he's trying to show that the difference between the two. So we are, he's really coming to this point of why we need to attach to the world, because everything that we as humans work so hard for, there is always some pain there. I know we use the term, no pain, no gain without pain, no pain, no gain, but basically the idea is that everything in the world, there is some pain to it, and that is what our samsara is. And that is what basically we find that it gives a lot of, we feel that the world is giving us security, but actually it is because at some point we reach a certain amount of insecurity that we keep on getting something to get that feeling of that slight amount of security. And once that is done, once we have acquired that stuff, which is, that gives us security, whether it is an object or whether it's a relationship or whether it is something very intellectual where I've, finally reached where I wanted to be, I'm looking for something else. So the security, this sort of permanent happiness and some kind of fulfillment, drives everything for us, and it keeps us attached to the world. But then we are unable to get out of this aspect that this world will never ever give me all those three things. It will never give me a permanent security. It will never ever give me a permanent happiness. It will never ever give me fulfillment at the highest level, right? So that is the whole idea why we see this concept of Prakriti and Apara Prakriti, which was brought out. So Apara Prakriti is where we have all this fascination for the objects and everything. And Para Prakriti is where actually that fascination is not there, but the ultimate happiness is there, ultimate permanence, ultimate security. So that is what kind of keeps us rooted in the world, and because it keeps us rooted in the world, we are unable to see this Para Prakriti itself. So so this brings me to this question then. Can you kind of define for me, or in your own way, what is really this moha and how does it function?
Attachment to objects is moha.
Attachment to objects is moha, but it is not just attachment, but it's a much even stronger word than attachment.
Desire.
Is it called a Lokavasana?
Lokavasana, yes, that is true. Lokavasana, Dehavasana, all that is moha, correct. But Lokavasana is a little more evolved. Dehavasana is probably what moha is all about. And again, Suvarna's point, it's the body orientedness, And how does it function?
simplistically saying, it makes us really narrow, selfish, self-centered, and very, very in one way, my way or the highway. There's nothing else. We refuse to see the bigger picture. There is more to it than just me,
Yes.
this body. Let's put it this way, this body,
Exactly.
there's more to life than this body. We refuse to
Correct.
see that.
Exactly. So the moha, we have to be so careful about it, right? It does give me that whole aspect of, like you said, this is it. I mean, there's nothing beyond this. It creates a sort of a veil of ignorance, and that's what we call as ignorance. Because of this veil of ignorance, it just doesn't allow me to see there is something beyond that. So when Anand said Lokavasana and then I said Dehavasana, for us, it's that Deha is the most important. It doesn't even allow me to see the Loka. Loka means world, the Jagat, and where I can be of help to the world. How I can really see everyone as part of an extension of myself. All that, it just prevents, man. This is what he says, Mam Ebhya Param Avyayam na Abhijanati. He doesn't even mohitam, it just deludes me so much, and it doesn't allow me to see what is even beyond me. So that is the part that he says that. So this is why in 7th chapter, he starts to come and tell us that this apara prakriti in which I am in, it can never ever give me my basic needs. It can never really satisfy me completely. It will give me my basic needs, but I have to first define what is my basic need. In corporate world, in US especially, goal, what is that? There's always training on how to set up your goals, how to this one. But that is the fundamental thing that we always fail. What is my goal? And how am I really achieving this? So in apara prakriti, if I'm not careful, this thing will just take up completely and gets me rooted in this aspect of atheism, right? And because of this atheism is why that finally I am unable to get out of it. And that is why religion comes in to help me understand that there is something beyond that. And of course, if I take religion by itself, as Swami Chidananda has defined this, there is both philosophy and the rituals. The philosophy is a spirituality that people always, can translate into. Spirituality is where I'm really trying to understand that there is something beyond the world. And atheism is a world where this Maya is totally deluding me. And allows me to go further ahead. So I just wanted to give that basic examples of why we need this atheism, why we need to understand what is atheism and what is religion and what is spirituality. Is that clear now, or any question? Geeta, what do you think? Any question from you?
Got it. Good.
Okay. So the point about it is, so long as I'm in this atheism mode, okay, it is extremely hard for me to even think of there is some other thing power like God, And this is why, again, in one of the shlokas of the 7th chapter, where he describes the 4 kinds of people who are so deluded by this world, by the fascination of the world, and they stay right there. Okay. But how do they get out of it? How do they get out of that mode of that? Now, bear in mind, I just want to be very clear. When I say atheism, I'm not trying to say that, atheists are bad. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm just saying is that they're more body oriented. That's all it is. They're more, for them, seeing is believing. Whereas for people who are attached to God, they believe in it and then they see it. Whereas people who are atheists will say, show me, only then I will believe in it. So that's the part that I wanted to bring in, this quote of, Wayne Dyer. And of course, quite a few people have said the same thing in different ways, So idea is, at some point, the people who are also body oriented, they would have done some amount of punyam, we say punyam, or they would have done some amount of service, some amount of good things in the world, which then propels them to start thinking that maybe there is something beyond this attachment to the world itself. And that is where this aspect of bhakti comes in. Okay. The bhakti aspect is, we talked about the 4 kinds, right? Geeta, do you remember what are the 4 kinds now that you mentioned the 4 people?
Sorry. Artha 3.
Yes.
Jignashu.
Uh-huh.
I forgot. Artha 3, Jignasu, and one more
Nyani.
is
The 4th one is nyani.
Nyani. Okay.
So this is kind of an important thing, because even as we come to the 4 things later, what I wanted to mention in very, very simple form then is, there are 3 kinds of bhaktis, okay? The person who, and this is where that whole aspect of the 4 people comes in here. So 3 kinds of bhakti. The first one is where this person feels that God is a means and worldly things are the end for me. Worldly things in the sense, my goal is to get the best in the world. That's the whole thing that I'm striving for here. So, and here, so we find that this is what Krishna says, that, you have to go through the 3 stages. In the first stage is where I use God. I really use God to get all my worldly desires for my artha. Okay, so this is kind of the lowest form of bhakti, and it's called as manda bhakti. Okay. So I use God for my worldly desires, and it is called as manda bhakti. Manda means the low one, right? Now, the second aspect is where God is the end in itself. I have actually gone beyond this, so when we look around, right, a lot of people are at that stage of manda bhakti. They constantly keep going to temples, or they keep constantly praying only because they want to use God. I'm using this in a very derogatory way, I think, but I just wanted to point out how, we use God for this. So God is, the second one is madhyama bhakti. God is the end in this one. God is the end in itself. Finally, I've come to realize that there's really nothing in the world, that finally there is nothing but God, and I need to evolve, So this is a little more of a mature bhakti here. And this madhya bhakti is a means, is not really means in that sense, but it is a means to purify myself. It is also means by which I'm no more sort of dependent on God for anything. I'm slowly coming to realize that, I am actually independent. I'm becoming independent. And finally, you have this third step where God is neither the means nor the end. God is me, myself. So it is the highest form of independence. I'm not really looking for anything more. I'm just totally independent. God is me, myself. And this is called as Uttama Bhakti. Okay. So these are the 3 forms by which slowly the person in that thing which I showed, which is the 2 kinds of people, where the attachment of the world, they move from the attachment of the world to attachment to God, and go beyond it. Make sense about, does this aspect of bhakti make sense? Because this question of bhakti always comes up in study groups also as a point. And if there's any question here, I would like to pause and give you an opportunity to kind of think through,
I have a question. Go back to your first session saying some people are only goal oriented. They just don't think of God. They want to reach the goal. You were just telling they don't think of God. But now, can we still be goal oriented and think of God? We can say, God, Please help me. That is the second one, Artharthi. It comes under Artharthi.
Artharthi, correct.
Oh,
Exactly.
okay.
All this is still coming under Artharthi only. You know?
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yes. In fact, now I have this chart here where you have this Artha, Artharthi, Jnana. So Artha is a person who goes to God to remove, asking God's help to remove any kind of sorrow from my life, any sadness from my life. Artharthi is a person who's going there to ask, is using God, and the first step of bhakti that I put here, where he's asking for help to gain something. Whereas a jignasa is a person who is recognizing that I want God for God himself or herself. Okay, I'm just that part of it. So still there is a separation between him or her and God. But ultimately, the nyani is a person who recognizes that ultimately I am God. I don't need anything. I'm totally independent. And whatever I'm living in this world is finally, I'm there to just, my prarabdha is playing through me, but ultimately I recognize I recognize my true nature.
So all these people come under bhakti. Am I right?
Except, so there is a difference. The first three levels, they come under, if you look in
Manda bhakti.
No, not necessarily Manda and Madhyama bhakti. They all have something to gain from God. Okay. It's only at the level of jignasa to jnani that there is absolutely no desire at all. Like even at the level of jignasa, the person wants to understand God. At Artha and Artharthi, they don't want to understand who God is. And literally, you can say even at the level of jignasa, there is this Saguna Brahman is what they are looking to understand. But at the level of jnani, they are at the level of Nirguna Brahman. Nirguna without any attributes at all.
Gotcha.
Okay. So this is why the shloka 19 has come, where finally Krishna says that at the end of many births, finally, a human being really recognizes his goal, like we talked about goals. Initially, our goals are only to fulfill anything out of my own prarabdha. But at the level of jnani, the goal is that evolution to recognize that I am that absolute self. That is why that Vasudeva word we have talked about before. And only very few Mahatmas finally come to recognize this. So that is why now I'm using that same thing here, that 4 stages of Artha, Artharthi, etc. in a little different way. In the beginning, I'm just worried about getting my food and clothing and shelter and everything. And finally, I come to the point of where I have gotten rid of the problems of life. I'm looking for something better. And this is why, Swami Vivekananda would say that, when in front of Vivekananda, if in front of a very poor person, if you were to give him a piece of bread and God comes in front of him too, he'd say, give me the bread first. I don't know who God is. That is not needed. But then slowly, after getting rid of the problems of life, and then really understanding the goal of what our life is. And then he slowly, I think I put something wrong. I'm saying bhakti for worldly gains. That is not true. The third one, I made a mistake there, sorry. But basically the word bhakti for non-worldly gains. That's what I wanted to say. And then finally, you see that the person at the level of jnani, all he does is basically Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasana. In fact, this is what my Acharya, during a Sandipni would also keep on telling us. At the end of the day, get to that level where you are only in spiritual knowledge. That's all you need. And especially for people like all of us who have now, gone, have understood what is worldly life and everything. we are very comfortably poised to that level where we can spend our life in spiritual knowledge. And in order to get to spending our life in spiritual knowledge, if there is something that bothers us, that I still want to do something, work or whatever, then choose certain areas which will give you the purity of mind. So there are many such professions, all service oriented, so start to doing more and more volunteer work, start to doing more and more areas where you can give more of your time, your money, anything, rather than taking. So at some point in life, I'm a taker, but after some time, I become a giver. So from a taker to giver is the evolution again for all of us. So this is, I'm just again using the 7th chapter as a way, in a very practical sense, for us to evolve from where we are. Okay, so that's what the shloka 19th, I wanted to again bring it, like I said, in a very practical sense for us. I think maybe my mouse battery is weak. That is probably why it's not moving at the pace that I wanted to move, There it is. So the next question that I'm asking for us is, does that mean that, we don't have any hope at all? I mean, when I put this word hope, it's not a hopelessness situation, but it is basically a situation where I'm asking ourselves about, for somebody like me who's living in this world where I'm yet to even understand there is something called consciousness, there is something called Brahman and all that. What do I do? And I think, Geeta, you asked this question just a little while ago about, does that mean that we shouldn't have worldly goals or anything? No. And this is the section why he's bringing this aspect of showing in this shloka 20 onwards. He's saying that, have as many worldly goals as you want. I'm not saying that's completely wrong. And Krishna is saying, guess what? If you know this is the goal that you have, I will provide you a manager who will make that happen for you. Okay. And that is what he's saying by this thing about kamaistair krita jnanaha prapadyante anya devataha. So he's saying, I will provide any devatas you want, okay, to fulfill all these goals, to fulfill these goals. And this is why I use the word manager, In companies too, we move from one group to another because I like this manager better. This manager is helping me fulfill my goals. So I will do that. The only thing that this shloka, and so this shloka is saying that, he's saying, if you go to a particular manager, now that manager will have certain rules, okay? Don't think everything will be just very rosy and everything. You have to go through the rules of it. So that is why he's saying tam niyamam astaya prakritya niyata swaya. So you have to follow the certain rules of the game. So this is why, for example, he's saying that other gods, so other gods like Ganesha or Saraswati or Lakshmi or anybody, right? We have certain mantras we have to say, we have certain rites we have to follow. He says you better follow this, okay? And then you will get your wish fulfilled based upon your own nature. Prakritya niyata swaya. He says they will do that. So just to make it a little more clearer in a Vedantic way here, what I'm trying to do. Okay. So he says, so for people who still are ignorant, who still haven't bought into the concept of Brahman, and he says the wisdom is rooted away. So what does it make? They're helplessly driven to approach other deities to obtain fulfillment of their desires. So once the devotee chooses a desire, he has to fill up the forms. Accordingly, he has to fill up whatever that particular group is asking you. And whatever you get, obviously, will be based upon what you have actually asked. Okay. So that's basically what he's trying to show here. And now we come to shloka number, next shloka, where he says, okay, oh my God, I'm really having problem with my mouse today. It's not moving to the next slide here. Sorry. You're muted. You're muted, Geeta.
Oh, right. How is number one connected to number two? Due to influence of delusion, their
Correct.
wisdom is looted away. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
What does this delusion make them do? And the
Right.
delusion people are helplessly driven to approach other deities. So, what is the first deity?
So basically, the first deity for all of us is that highest deity. Okay. The highest deity, which is Brahman.
Ultimate. Okay.
Ultimate. That is first. Okay. Now you have the opportunity to go directly to the first, but then we are very happy with the second. It's, I mean, just a very classic example. You know, in a classroom, I had the opportunity to sit in the first row and listen to the teacher. But what do? I go to the back seats. I go to the second or the third row or the fourth row or the fifth or the last bench based upon what my desire is in that class, right? I sit in the last bench because I don't want to listen to the teacher. I come to the third, fourth, etc. So that is what he's saying, that for all of us, our desires, they create this delusion. And based on the delusion, I go to that particular other gods, whether it's a second god or the third god or everything. And even that, in the previous classes, we talked about how if I cannot really visualize a Brahman because of my own desire delusion, then I can go to the next level, which is the Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Okay. Now, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, also, if I'm unable to fathom in terms of creation, dissolution, etc., then I come down one more level where, you know, Shiva himself in various forms, you know, Ishvara himself in different forms. I can pray to all of them. Okay, if that also is not enough, I want somebody which is more of my personal God. So then what happens? The personal God will fulfill my desire because I'm putting all my effort only to fulfill that God. You know, that God is laid out, okay, these are the rituals you have to do. Everything, if you do it, I will fulfill it. And that is absolutely true, actually. You know, these gods are there to fulfill those desires. And that is why even in the American parlance, you know, they will say, you know, be careful what you wish for, right? You may just get it. I remember my boss used to always say this when we had a performance review, and I would tell him, you know what, John, I really want, I want to do this responsibility or that responsibility. And he would caution you, say, are you sure you're ready for it? You know, are you ready for it? Do you think you can actually do it? So this is exactly how, even in the 7th chapter, you know, the gods and everything is laid out, and he's telling us about it. Okay. Makes sense? Okay. So then in Shloka 21, you know, Krishna is saying that, you know, there is actually, I will give you anything you want, because ultimately I am the one who have created even these gods. Okay. And these gods are there to serve you. And he also says, you know what, there's nothing wrong in asking for anything which is totally finite. Now, all these gods will only give you something finite. For example, if I ask them for a particular iPhone, they will give me the iPhone. Okay. But the iPhone is not going to last long because it's going to be replaced by the next iPhone, i15 or 16 or 17 or whatever, right? They're all very, very finite. But Krishna is saying, I can give you much, much bigger than this. Not all these simple things, much bigger than that, which is infinite. But I'm willing to give you even those things. There's nothing wrong. So continue. So he says, you know, yo yam tanum bhaktaha shraddhaya chitum ichchati tasya achalam shraddham tameva vidadam yaham. He says, whatever form of deity, you know, you worship, but you have to do it with full shraddha, you know. if you tell Ganesha, that, hey, I need your help. Okay. So Ganesha demands all his, that grass and everything, the kind of thing. You do
Take
all
coconut.
that. Break the coconut, make the modaks, all that. You do it with full Shraddha. I will tasya achanam Shraddham. I will definitely give you all this. Okay. He says, and this, again, he says, make sure whatever faith you have, whether it's tamasic, sattvic, rajasic, accordingly, I will fulfill all these desires. So you see how compassionate. I mean, somebody may say, what is this? This God is, giving me everything, whatever I want. Should he be telling me that I have to control my desire? I have to control my desire? No, he's saying that, that is where your energy is. How can I stop you from that, right? So he says, the only thing I'm asking you is make sure your faith is absolutely unfavoring. Okay. You just make it absolutely unfavoring and I will provide you this. So, but this is why I said, as we think, so we become. So greater this consistency with which this idea or attachment that I work with, the more I really I become that kind of person, and so the more, so basically, we have to be careful with our desires, because this kind of a channel, it just creates a kind of this deep-rooted desire in me, the desired thought pattern. And this thought pattern, basically leads to all these desires. And this desire is basically, then finally is I become. So he says, I'll give you everything, but be careful, because you become so involved with it and you don't just stay there. Okay. So that's what he's trying to say, that next one. So in
I have a question. How does Shankaracharya's Shanmata fit here in this context?
You mean the sixth Shat Sampatti, or?
Shanmata, like as Shankaracharya, what he did was, he prescribed like 6 gods to worship. So, I mean, this from the probably other texts from him. So they are Vishnu, Shiva, Durga, Ganesha, Subramanya, and the 6th one is Surya.
Which text are you referring to?
It's not coming in front of me, but if I even check for like other places, Shanmata, Stapana, if I give like a search, Shankaracharya is, he is the one who started this. And the belief behind this was these 6 gods are capable of giving the moksha.
Are capable of giving moksha in the sense, in
Yes,
a secondary way. In a secondary way, Shankara would say that, because again, when you look at this bhakti can be something which is sakama bhakti or nishkama bhakti. Okay. So sakama bhakti means with desires. So these, I'm just trying to kind of extrapolate what you're trying to say. And I will probably look for this Shanmata Stapana that you're saying. But in a sense, these 6 gods, maybe, for him to show that all people have some form of desire or not. And so these gods can help you fulfill your desires. Once your desires are fulfilled, then you are now ready for the Nishkama Bhakti. And when you have the Nishkama Bhakti, that's when you really attain moksha. What is moksha? Moksha is basically attainment of the aspect that at the end of the day, there is nothing but that consciousness or reality everywhere. It is Brahman everywhere, and I am that Brahman. That is moksha. So what Shankaracharya would be trying to say is that this is again the steps towards moksha. Not that if you pray to God, you get moksha. That's not how he would say it.
Yeah, another reason could be Nirgunapasana and Sagunapasana. So if those people who can't do Nirguna Upasana, then this could be the alternate way through through for
But
worship.
it is not alternate in the sense it is a step towards Nishkama Bhakta. So that is true because not everyone is geared towards Nirguna Upasana, right? So people need that Saguna form in order to focus their attention and energy. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Geeta?
Hari Om. I think Paramacharya Mahaprabhu, if I'm correct, he always says, first, anything you start, worship with, start with your Kuladeva, and then do Sankalpam or whatever it is for any other Homa, Havan or anything that you. So the first priority goes to the individual Kuladeva, right?
Correct. Exactly. So if you remember in the beginning of this session, we talked about how either you can go through the top-down approach or the bottoms-up. Top-down approach is, you know that it's nothing but consciousness all around. And if I'm tuned to that consciousness, then I don't need the help of any gods. Then you have all the 3 gods, and then you have the 33 devatas who are responsible for various departments. And even that aspect, I cannot go there. Then I have the Kula devatas who can help me to focus my attention. So what you just said is, so we can start with the Kula devatas, and then we can go to the devatas responsible for different functions in the world, and then I go to the 3 Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, and then ultimately, go to Brahman.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So then in shloka number 22, where he says, Satya Shraddhaya Yuktaha, he who is endowed in this, he who is working in this world with complete faith, and he engages himself only in the worship of that deity, like for example, where Meena said about Kuladevam, that person, for him, he obtains a desire which has been ordained by me alone. That is, so Krishna is saying, don't worry that you have not actually gone away from me, but I'm the one who has actually made this possible. So that is what Satya Shraddha. But the only thing he says is, all I want is that absolute faith from you. And only with that faith you engage. Like for example, when we think about Steve Jobs, I have given this example before too, how did he come up with this whole Apple company or anything? He was so totally engaged in his mission, and he was able to achieve that with total faith. So the same faith, what Krishna is saying is that if you apply it into anything, I will give you that, because ultimately I'm the one who is actually making all these deities provide this for you. Okay. So then in shloka 23, having said this, what he does is, he gives you a warning. Okay. He says, whatever you want, I can actually give you. But then he gives this kind of a statutory, I spelled it wrong here, it's statutory warning. It's like nowadays, of course, in India, you don't see this, but in the past, whenever you have a cigarette packet, right? In the cigarette packet, they'll say, okay, this is what you will get when you take this puff of cigarette. You'd be in the 7th heaven and all that. But then in very small letters at the bottom, in small print, but they'll say, cigarette smoking is injurious to health, right? So Krishna uses the same thing. I'm sure maybe the companies also would have learned this from this particular shlokas, I guess, how to this. So Krishna, he recognizes people of different kinds, and he feels that, he has to give this warning here. So what is that warning? There. To focus my so he says, okay, you can basically indulge in whatever you want, and I will provide all these gods as managers to get what you want. But then remember, all these things that you're asking for has defects. Okay. And what are those defects? Every worldly pleasure is a potential pain. Okay. That's why I said in the beginning, there is no gain without pain. Okay. And every worldly accomplishment is finite. And finally, the biggest defect, so unlike putting it in small print, he's actually very boldly declaring these things. He says, it really creates a slavery. You become too attached to all these things. So he says, kind of be careful here. My mouse. So he says, Antavantu phalam tesham, Antavattu phalam tesham, Tadbhavati, Tadbhavatyalpamedasham, Tadbhavatyalpamedasham, Medhasam, Antavattu phalam tesham, Tadbhavatyalpamedhasam, Devan devayajo yanti, Devan devayajo yanti, Madbhakta yanti mamapi, Madbhakta yanti mamapi. So he's saying that whatever you're trying to achieve, they are all they are all finite, they are temporary, and they will perish. But he uses a very strong word. He says that this is, only people with very little intelligence, alpa medha, medha means knowledge. Only people of little intelligence really go for all these fruits in this world, which are finite and which gives a lot of pain. So we know it gives pain, but yet we go for it. Okay. The classic old gulab jamun example that we always give, yes, we may argue that, I don't have sugar, so I'm going to have this gulab jamun, right? Having one gulab jamun is not the problem, but having more than one or two and getting attached to it is what the problem is. And that is what he's trying to say here too, is ultimately, if you want, you can go for it. So Devan Deva Yaja Yanti, the worshippers of the Devas, they go to them, but my devotees, they come to me. You see how beautifully he's trying to show that, if you want, you stay in the world, I will provide you all these devatas who can help you achieve your objectives. But I also want to tell you, there is another path. You can just have a triple promotion or whatever and come to me directly by bypassing all these aspects. And I'm sure somebody's going to ask me this question, but what is the way? Why am I not able to see that aspect? And that is what I want to ask you the question now. Why do you think, we do have these two paths open for us? I can go to the small devatas who can, fulfill all my desires, but I can also go to Krishna. What is stopping me?
I have a question before we go. Devas, see, one place he says, I am the Deva, I am one of the Devas. And one place, if you want, you go to Deva or you come to me. Why is he differentiating himself into two?
Why is he differentiating? It is because of us. Because I'm asking, I'm not able to see Krishna in the form that he really is in, which is formless, attributeless, and all that. I'm not able to see him that way. So he's coming down to a level where I can see him. So that is why, starting from when a child, when a child is just a few years old, what do we tell the child? Mata, Pita, Guru, Deva, right? Don't we say that? So a child cannot even visualize who God is, but a child can definitely know his mother, his father, his teacher are gods, right? So that is what Krishna is saying. Ultimately, I come in the form of your mother, your father, and then the people around you, your boss. Once I remember in Bali Bihar, I did say your boss is also in the form of God, and somebody got really mad at me and they said, what do you mean? So we had but the point is, all the form, Krishna is coming in all these forms, and then he's also coming in the form in the temple, where I can go and see him in its beautiful form itself as a flute player. He comes in the form of Bhagavati, he comes in the form of everybody, But then he also says, you can actually come to me as consciousness, but you have to be ready to give up all this. And that is the crux.
So is
I'm not
it like a step-by-step process, or right away we cannot go to the Krishna level, right? We have to go step by step. Maybe.
No, we don't have to go step by step. And that is what this is again, I'm coming to a different facet of how we have studied. When we have studied the Western way of studying, we are always taught that everything has to be a linear thinking. But it doesn't have to be linear. The linear thinking will work for people who can think linearly, but there are a lot of people who can have that triple promotion or anything, who can think differently. Our Shastras gives us all this ability. They give us all these possibilities for us. So this shloka is very beautiful that way. It is telling us we have all these paths available. Everything is there in Hinduism. And that is another major thing for us, is that Hinduism gives you all these paths. Why do I need to convert myself? Why do I need to go to a different faith?
Then why do we go to the temple and pray? When we sit at home and think about the ultimate, why should we have to go to the temple?
No, you don't need to. You don't need to at all. If you can sit at home and pray and reach that ultimate state, that is the best solution.
Okay.
The temples are there for, we spoke in the beginning, right? But the temples are there for a reason. The temples are there to fulfill my purpose. Okay.
Can we say we have not come to that level, that's why we are going to the temple?
That is exactly it. Because I'm not able to sit at home and meditate.
Yes.
I go to the temple. And when I go to the temple, God gives me what I want. And then I can come home and then I can meditate. I'm supposed to do that.
Exactly.
So God is saying, I'm there for you. Please come see me. Give me a beautiful smile. I will take care. I'll take all your problems away from you. You go home now and you meditate upon me as that ultimate Krishna. But guess what? What do we do? We go to the temple, we pray. The next step, we go to the mall.
Yes.
We don't come home, right? So that's where the problem is. So
yes, exactly.
I'm just joking here, but that's not true. We don't all go to the mall. So that's the thing he gives us, option 1 and 2 options. With the faith, go to the desire, go to temple, fulfill your desire. And then, everything is done, you come back. And that's probably what Anand was trying to say here. The Shanmata, the 6 gods are there to help me go to moksha. Or the other option is I just sit at home, pray, and ultimately my desires are reduced and I develop even more bhakti. Okay. So I know the time is already 7 o'clock. We will, but we have completed up to shlokas 23, and we will we'll move on to going to the next section. Okay.
Sorry, hope we are all not holding you behind.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I hope what we discussed today made sense. And it was said, we discussed it in a manner that is really hits me from where I am. That is very important.
Very much. It makes sense very much.
Okay. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhave. Om shanti shanti shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Stop, please.
Hari Om, thank you so much.